My name is Ashlyn, and welcome back to Medicated and Motivated. No, we are not in my office. Welcome to my living room. I'm going to be honest with you. My back was killing me. The thought of sitting in my office chair sounded miserable. We'll talk about that in a second, but look at my cute little couch. Look at my couch. I have the cutest little fall pillows. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I'm obsessed with my living room right now, so I'm really not mad that I chose to film right here. And it's my couch. It's so comfy. If I had a cuter, like if my fridge was not behind me right here, this would be such a cute little backdrop. It's fine. But I need new shoes. So the shoes that I usually wear are the On Cloud shoes. I'm going to be 100% for real with you guys. I love On Cloud. Everyone knows that my boots are my babies. Great shape, so comfortable. Love them. It's the tennis shoes that make me want to cry. My back, the back of my legs, my knees, everything is killing me after just 4 hours of standing at the college. That is ridiculous. And I do understand that On Cloud has several different types of tennis shoes. I have 2 of them. One of them I wear to the gym. The other one are just like my everyday shoes that I do wear the most at the college. And I can't do it anymore, guys. I truly can't. So I think this is my sign to try Hoka's. What do we think? My best friend does swear by the On Cloud monsters, but I just don't know if I want to spend my money on Cloud again. I know that I love the boots. I will rave about the boots. But there's something about the tennis shoes, guys. I think we're going to have to invest in a different brand. What's also really fun about this new scenery is you're probably going to have more cameos of Shadow. I can hear him behind me, actually. This right here, if you can see it, that's my bathroom. And he loves to play in there. So you'll probably hear or see him eventually in this video. Okay, circling back. Today's episode, we are talking about the first day of work. The first day you are ever stepping foot on a truck. Or, you know, like that scene in Finding Nemo where he's like, first day of school, first day of school. That's the only thing I think of. Okay, I know it's not school. But today, actually, I posted an Instagram questionnaire about just like, hey, do you have any questions for me? Get to know me, something like that. And there was somebody on there that said, I need tips because it is my first day on the truck ever tomorrow. And I was like, you know what? I've never really talked about that. I've never really talked about like being on a truck for the very first time. And it brought me back to the first time I was ever on a truck, and it was terrifying. So this episode, we're just going to be chit-chatting. I don't have a script. I don't have pointers. I just going solely off of memory and how I felt on my first day ever stepping foot on an ambulance. And let's give some advice and talk. Like I've said several times before, whether it's on my TikTok or even the 5 episodes I have on here, I have said this at least 3 out of the 4 of these episodes. I did not have any guidance when I got into EMS. I did not have any ideas about what my first day was going to look like. And I walked in very unprepared. Let's just say that. Walking into a first responder job is not like walking into any other type of job. I do want to make a very clear note. The job I walked into my very first day as an EMT was also an agency that did not give me pretty good orientation. I basically showed up and, hey, this is the truck. Good luck. Like, it was very, very chaotic. I still remember my very first call I ever ran. I remember exactly who the people were. The whole shift was chaotic. And I think that's why I felt so obligated to make this video and podcast, is because just like every other advice or just story time that I tell you, I never want someone to go through what I was feeling. So your first shift at a first responder job, whether it's fire EMS, or just fire, I want you to think of it like a sleepover, because essentially it is. No matter what type of shift you're working, whether it's a 12, a 24, or 48, anything like that, you're probably going to be spending the night. Or like say you work the back half of a 12-hour shift, so you're the night shift person. You may have a chance to sleep. Pack yourself a bag. So truthfully, your first shift starts like a couple of days before because you want to prepare for it. Whatever you would bring to someone else's house to spend the night is what you should bring to your first shift. So for example, a bath bag. You may have face wash, a toothbrush, toothpaste, mouthwash, any type of serums or acne medicine, moisturizer, lotion, body wash, shampoo and conditioner. I'm not saying you may take a shower and wash your hair, but you never know what crap you may get into at work, and you may be forced to wash your hair. It's happened to me. It's not very fun. Just be prepared. Maybe a towel or deodorant, anything you would need to be away from your house for 24 hours. How about sleep clothes? Maybe a pair of shorts or a pair of sweatpants. An extra uniform, no matter how many days or how many hours you are working, whether it's a princess shift, which is like 8 hours, you're going to bring an extra uniform. The one time you don't is the time that a patient is going to spill all their bodily fluids on you, and then you're not going to have an extra uniform. Bring the extra uniform, okay? Socks, underwear, bras, like bring everything, at least one of everything. A lot of common things that I also keep in my bag is like another charger and an extension cord, because sometimes in the bedrooms, the outlet is all the way over there, and I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me. So I have an extension cord so I can have my phone closer to my head, obviously hearing text tones and alarms. And also because it's EMS, it's a 50-50 job. Bring yourself a book. Bring yourself an iPad. A lot of people bring their Nintendo Switches to work because, as many people tell you on social media and in person, oh, you get sleep? You have time to read a book? Yeah, they do too. They just won't admit it. I promise. EMS is 50-50. Yesterday, I didn't have time to do anything. I opened a discussion board for school about 60 times. Never did anything with it. But then, 2 shifts ago, I was able to write a whole paper. Bring stuff and be prepared to be productive. You know what I'm saying? Now, food is going to be up to you. Some people meal prep. I'm one of those people. Some people find it wasteful to meal prep because you may never get to eat the meals that you cooked and you spent money on. So it's just a waste of your money and time. My opinion, you're going to eat the food eventually, no matter if you reheated it once or reheated it a couple times. That's kind of just my opinion. And I'm a person that likes to know exactly what they're putting in their body. Fast food, it adds up. Sometimes I don't feel like eating fast food. I feel like eating the food that I cooked. I personally meal prep. I bring myself 2 meals and then just a bunch of snacks throughout the day, and I keep it in a lunchbox. Pack the things that are going to keep you full. So some high protein stuff and some carbs matching with it. Always make sure you're keeping yourself hydrated. I would also bring a water bottle with me. And lastly, I feel like this one is obvious, but on my first day as an EMS provider, I did not bring bedding. So I worked a 48-hour shift, sleeping with the hospital blanket on a plain mattress with no pillow. I used my hoodie as a pillow. Very humbling, to say the least. One thing that I learned from that, if a patient ever says they're cold and we give them those stupid little hospital blankets, give them like 3 more. Those things are paper. They're not doing a single thing. Bring yourself some bedding. Most EMS stations have like twin-sized beds, so get yourself some twin-size sheets and maybe a top cover. I keep a quilt. A lot of people comment on my quilt, and it keeps me warm throughout the night. Whether you sleep in the bed or not, bring bedding. You're probably going to at least sit in it once or twice. That's at least preparing for your shift. Like I said, your shift actually starts a couple days in advance when you're trying to prepare for it. The more preparation you do before your shift, the less you're scrambling on the day of. So now it's the day of your first shift. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be scared. You're going to be very, very overwhelmed, feeling like you're forgetting something, nervous to meet new people. I don't think you can hear that because my mic is very sensitive, but there's a fire truck going by right now. Hi, friends. You're going to be nervous, feeling like you're forgetting something, overwhelmed, whatever have you. I mean, it's your first day. You heard about this in EMT school. You heard about this in paramedic school, but now it's actually here. You got to meet new people. You got to meet your bosses. You have to see patients. You have to drive the truck and run the calls. It's scary, okay? But don't worry, we're going to get you through this. So for the basis of this video, I'm going to keep talking like it's a 24-hour schedule that you're on. I know that some services have the 12-hour schedule. Those are a lot easier to talk about because those are pretty typical in healthcare. Like, you go, you come home. Whereas 24, you're there for 24 hours. It's a little bit different of a ball field. When I started my EMS career, I was actually doing 48-hour shifts. I was on the 48-96 schedule. Now I am fortunate enough to be on the 24-48 schedule. Someday, maybe that'll change. So you get to your workplace, whether you've met the new people. So you get to your agency, whether you've met all the people or not. Making your first impression is something that is very intimidating to people. And I'm not going to say your first impression is so important. It is important, but the more you tell someone that, it's harder for them to not be nervous. And I already know you're going to be nervous. The biggest piece of advice I have for this is just try to be yourself. You're going to be nervous and they're expecting you to be nervous. They're not expecting you to be full on confident and wanting to go balls to the walls with all these calls and protocols and checking out the truck. Like, no, they know you're going to be nervous. They know that this is a really big day for you. You've never touched a truck before. It's your first time. They're not expecting you to be this all-out outgoing person unless that's just your personality, and that's perfectly fine. I remember my first day vividly. I showed up and I knew nobody. I knew the person that interviewed me, which ended up being the captain. That was it. I didn't know any of the coworkers. I had only met the chief once, and he wasn't even there that day. So I basically walked in, knew absolutely no one. No one knew me. No one knew my name. It was very just awkward, to say the least. And that may be how it is for you, and that's okay. Hopefully, your service is going to put you through some type of orientation. So the first day for a lot of people looks very different. My current service, you will actually do 2 days of classroom orientation before you even go to your first shift. And I find that to be one of the most beneficial ways to orient a new hire. One of those days, they go through a bunch of PowerPoints of like, hey, this is the service area. These are all of your command staff, and they show like pictures of everybody. This is how you get into your employee login. This is how you find your paychecks. This is how you schedule yourself for shifts. All of these like boring things, I'll be honest with you, but they're so necessary. And the way my training chief does them was so smart. And then the second day of classroom orientation is actually touching the truck, which is another thing that I felt was so beneficial, because one of the most nerve-wracking things about my first day as an EMT ever touching a truck was the fact that I remember I didn't have a proper FTO when I first got hired on at my service. And truthfully, I didn't really go through orientation either. The service was a little rough when it came to that stuff. I literally walked in, they're like, hey, I'm the paramedic. You're going to be on my truck for the rest of the day. Here's the truck. Go for it. And I just kind of had to find everything for myself. And let me tell you, as an EMT that didn't see half, actually, I'd venture to say 75% of the equipment on that truck in her EMT class, it was nerve-wracking, to say the least. It was very just chaotic checking that truck. And we got a call in the middle of it. So not only did I pull everything out, but have to rush to put it all back in the cabinets because we got a call. Anyway, my current service, the truck day is basically where you learn all of the mechanics of the truck. So you learn the switchboard, which is like where all of your sirens are, where your lights are, how to turn on the lights, the radio, how to key up on the radio, how to change the channels on the radio. And then we go to the outside compartments. We learn where the oxygen tank is, the stair chair, how to open all the doors, pull everything out, where everything goes on the truck. Then we get to the back of the truck. I think a lot of people forget that there's more than just the back of the ambulance. There's the sides, there's the front. And it's an actual vehicle. You have to do maintenance on it. So, of course, we also go through like where the oil pan is, where the master lock is, because most ambulances, depending on the brand, have a master lock where it's actually a switch. It's usually inside the grill. You can actually hit it and it locks or unlocks all of the doors on the truck. It's very, very handy, especially when you have a truck like mine and we can't figure out why it's locking all the time at midnight and you refuse to call your supervisor because it's embarrassing. I'm just a girl. Anyway, needless to say, the orientation that I had as a paramedic who had already been in EMS for 3 years versus a brand new day one EMT, vastly different. Absolutely different. The orientation I had as a paramedic is the one I needed as an EMT. And that was what was sad. I learned more truck operations as a paramedic than I did when I was an EMT. And there's a stupid Eat Our Young saying that is, the EMT's main job is to manage the truck. That was the mindset of my paramedic that I was partners with, and you heard about him in the Leeches episode. If you missed the Leeches episode, please go back and listen to it. I ain't going to open that box of worms today. No matter what your services orientation looks like, hopefully you have one. So your first day may not be as intimidating as you think, because most of the day you might just be doing operations. You may not even be touching calls. What I'm trying to say is your first day at an EMS job may not even be running calls and freaking out about patient care and all of that. It may be just orientation. You may just be getting a tour of the station or a tour of the trucks, how to log into your email or your scheduling app, whatever you guys use, practicing charts if you've never used a charting system before, looking at the radios, looking at the service area. We also had a third day of orientation that I completely forgot about. It was just driving. My training chief drove us around and showed us every single main hospital, nursing home, school, fire stations, all the different towns in the area. So your first day as an EMS job, I want you guys to remember, may not be as scary as you think, because a lot of it may just be like boring classroom stuff, or you have to get this stuff out of the way before I can even let you run any calls. But let's say you're out of service, that you're literally thrown on the truck for the first day. Looking in the back of a truck as an EMT for the very first time is very, very overwhelming. There's a lot of supplies. You obviously saw them all in EMT school. Hopefully. I didn't, but I hope you did, because I hope everyone's EMT experience is much better than mine. But when you open those back doors for the first time, you see the cot, you see the cabinets, they're full. You see all the bags in the corner, the captain's seat, the CPR seat. It's an overwhelming sight. Just tackle it one at a time. Hopefully you have a preceptor or an FTO or a training chief, paramedic, EMT partner, whoever it is. Hopefully you have someone there that will guide you through a systematic approach to the truck. I'm not saying I agree with that paramedic that the EMT's main job is to know the truck and manage the truck. I'm not saying that he was correct, but I'm do saying he does have a certain point. The EMT should know where everything is on the truck, no matter if they know what it is or not, because when that paramedic's hands are tied up doing something, they can just look over and say, hey, I need you to grab this. You may not know what they're asking for, but you're going to know where it is. Read the labels on the packages, and then if you don't know what it is, hey, maybe ask about it later, but you know where it's located on the truck. And the cool thing is, there's probably more than one on the truck too. So there's one in that go bag, there's one on a cabinet, there may be one somewhere hidden somewhere else. The main point I really just want to bring across when it comes to the back of the truck: you may not know what the supply is used for. You may not know how to pronounce the name correctly. But if you can know where it's located on the truck, then you're golden. That is something that I was taught as an EMT in the wrong way. I was ridiculed when I didn't know where something was on the truck, and it scared me to learning the entire truck from frontwards to backwards. I told the story in the EMS Leeches podcast, which is, I believe, episode 3. Like I said, please go listen to that episode. It's the episode that right now I'm the most proud of. I was yelled at because I didn't know where a supply was on the truck. And it made me learn every single supply on the truck and where it was. But it's in a way that I shouldn't have had to learn. You know what I'm saying? Giving yourself that discipline to learning everything and where everything is located in the truck is the discipline that'll show your coworkers that you have motivation and drive as an EMT. And it makes you a very, very useful helping hand. Like I said, you may not know what the supply is, you may not know why you're using it, but if that medic says, hey, I need this thing that looks like this thing, you're like, oh yeah, that's in this cabinet. You're a helping hand. EMTs save paramedics. It's a very common phrase, and it's a very, very true phrase. When I was an EMT, I know that I was not the most helpful EMT, and I will admit that. It was not until I got proper orientation about 6 months into my job that I became a somewhat decent EMT and helping hand. But by the time I was done in paramedic school and I truly saw how important it was to be an EMT, that's when I became a pretty large helping hand. Now, I also did remember and recognize all of the ALS stuff because I had just gone through paramedic school, but if I would have just had this orientation and proper guidance at the beginning of my EMT career, I probably wouldn't have gone through as much trauma and ridicule as I did throughout my entire year as an EMT. All right. The truck could be a whole video in itself. So let's say you've checked out the truck. Looking at stuff, Remembering where all the supplies are, that's easy. There is one main thing that I truly want to touch on, and it is your first day, you're going to have a lot of questions. You're going to have so many questions, whether it's truck related, call related, station chore related, chart related, scheduling. If you guys use a paging system, the radios, anything, you're going to have a lot of questions, okay? I don't want you to be afraid to ask them. I don't want you to be afraid to ask them. As a new hire, the more you get out of the way on that first/second or third shift, the easier your life's going to be. When I first started, I had no idea what I was supposed to be asking. I had never had a full-time job before. This was my first big exposure to healthcare. I'd been in healthcare before, but not this realm of healthcare. There were so many questions that I could have asked and had answered way sooner than I did if I would have just known and had the guts to speak up. Ask things such as like, hey, how do I find my schedule? How do I get into the charting system? Will you go over a couple charts with me? Hey, what are the chores that need done every single day? Stuff like that. Just like your agency expects you to be anxious on your first day, they're also going to expect you to have a lot of questions, and that's okay. That is perfectly fine. The more questions you get out of the way and you ask them, the less confusion there may be later on. You're not going to think of every single question on your first day. It may be your third or it may be your fourth shift that you think of a question. But as long as you're asking them, you don't know these people, but you're going to. The more questions you ask and the more interested you may seem in the job and the interest you show in the job is going to be a very good impression from your agency. The people that kind of get lost in the shadows and they don't ask a lot of questions and they just seem very like antsy and nervous and they're kind of quiet, it's really hard to get a good grasp on those new hires. It's really hard to tell if they're motivated or not. Okay. I want to touch a little quickly on like running your first call and getting those tones going off for the first time. Nobody can truly prepare you for your first time hearing those tones or getting in the driver's seat and running priority to your first call. It's a feeling that a lot of people find thrilling. Some people find it nerve-wracking. Some people are obsessed with the feeling and the adrenaline running through their body. But I'll be honest with you, even until my first year as a paramedic, there are certain calls that I still felt my stomach go straight down. Like I felt it drop every single time I got in that driver's seat and I started driving. It's a little scary sometimes when you truly understand that EMS does not know what they're responding to almost 90% of the time. Yes, you have dispatchers. Yes, you have a chief complaint. You may have a paging system. You may have dispatch notes that you can read. But no matter how many dispatch notes or what the dispatchers are telling you, you truly don't know what you're walking into. And when you start truly thinking about that, our job gets a little scary. I think about this a lot. And I have a really, really, really great TikTok that I posted, probably 3 years ago now, that I would like to make into a full episode. I was actually looking at it today. But it talks about EMS goes to some sketchy places. Like, yeah, you may be getting called to a residence, but it's just the thought that somebody could be calling 911 for one thing, and then you get there and it's something completely different, and it turns into a life or death situation, and you may be put in danger. When you start really understanding that aspect of first response, not just EMS, like fire and police, our job gets a little scary. And I think if you were exposed to this piece of advice early on, then realizing that will not be as scary for you. Accepting it now is something that you can do to benefit yourself in the future so you won't have that stomach dropping feeling and feeling so anxious walking into people's houses. Because it is something that's kind of weird, you know? EMS is not I'm walking into an ER room. I'm walking into a doctor's office. I'm walking into an urgent care. Not all the time. We do that sometimes, but not all the time. It's people's houses. It's the side of the road. It's baseball fields. It's churches, grocery stores, banks. It's in the middle of a crop field because the farmer started having chest pain in his tractor. Like, EMS is kind of wild. The mindset that you are going to a situation where you really don't know what's going on is, I truly believe, the root of most people's anxiety. But sometimes that's also the thrilling part of the job. Something else that's a little nerve-wracking that I truly didn't know about or even think about when I was a baby EMT was sleeping. So if you're at a 24 or 48-hour job, you obviously are going to spend the night at these stations. And when you bring your bedding, you make your little bed, and who knows if you're actually going to sleep in it or not. But say you do get the chance to sleep or just lay down. It can sometimes be really nerve-wracking to sleep. And there are some veterans, like my FTO / training chief, he's one of them. He's like, I never sleep at the station. It's not the I can't sleep. It's the I am just on edge being here at the station. I know tones can go off at any moment, and that I could spend upwards of an hour to 2 hours on a call. And then I blink, it's 4 a.m. My very first night ever sleeping in a station, I had my pager on full blast. I was terrified to sleep through a call. And I don't know if everyone knows what Active 911 is, but Active 911 is a mobile paging system. So a lot of times it is connected to the dispatch center. And when the dispatch center gets a call, they will also type it into Active 911, and it sends all of us the address of the emergency and sometimes chief complaint. I had my phone on full blast. My ringer was on in case I slept through Active. I did not sleep a wink my very first night. The anxiety of I'm going to sleep through a call was real. And here's the deal. If you sleep through a call, it's not a big deal. Your partners should be smart enough to, go knock on your door. Hey, man, we got a call. Let's go. You may not hear what the call is. They may have to inform you where you're going, but you'll be up for the call. And if you have a really crappy partner that doesn't wake you up for the call, that needs reported, because I was with a partner like that one time, and I was like, dude, what's it going to benefit you or the patient to be sitting here in the truck while there was a call dropping? And they're like, I figured you were going to get up eventually. Well, that was a dumb statement. Like, dude, we're all sometimes heavy sleepers. And I have knocked on several people's doors. Usually I give them around like 2 minutes, okay? Depends on what's going on. But I have knocked on several people's doors. Trust me. Trust me. It's always really like annoying and frustrating. You feel embarrassed if you do sleep through a call. Just know that everyone sleeps through calls. No matter the lightest sleeper, the heaviest sleeper, it happens. Sometimes those crappy little paging systems and radios don't go through your building, and you set your radio in a dead spot and don't know it. Had that happen to me several times. Or, I don't know how many times you have slept through your phone, but I don't wake up to Active. I don't care if it's the loudest tone that Active has. Which one is it? The freaking siren. I usually have mine on the long beep. The actual pager sound is really freaking annoying. It doesn't matter what sound I have on. I always sleep through it, okay? I got to the point where I just don't even sleep with my ringer on anymore. But just like I said, everyone has slept through a call. Don't feel anxious about it. And before you know it, you wake up and your shift is over. Whether it's a 24 and you're back in the next 48 hours, if you're on a 48, you got another 24 to go through, then you're off for 96, you're going to make it through your first shift. If I could go back to that baby EMT Ashlyn and tell her, if I could go back to baby EMT Ashlyn and I could give her any piece of advice on that very first shift, it would be to remind yourself that not every single shift is going to feel like this. The jitters, the little butterflies in your tummy, and all the anxiety, it's not going to be there every single shift. If this job is truly made for you, and if you really want to do this job, you'll get used to it. No matter what job you have, you are going to be nervous on that first day. Our job is a little bit different of a breed. Same with fire, same with police. There's a certain level of responsibility and the things that we see and go through in our job that not everyone can be prepared for, especially when it comes to your very first day. If the time comes, say you run a really bad trauma or a cardiac arrest, pediatric call, something very, very significant on your very first day, just know, like I said, that's not supposed to happen every single shift. And right off the gate, just know that your coworkers and your supervisors are there to talk. You're there to talk to them. You're there to express what you feel. And I hope that everyone starts to feel comfortable in their job eventually. For me, it took a long time, but like I said, my history with this job was not always the brightest. And the orientation I went through in the very first shift that I ever had is something that I don't want people to experience. So if you have any funny stories or any tips and tricks from your very first day, please leave them in the comments below, because everyone reads the comment section, especially on YouTube. You can find me scrolling through that comment section the entire video. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, hit the bell so you're notified every single time that I post, and subscribe. Why would you not subscribe if you're watching this podcast? If you're listening on Spotify, again, hit the bell. It should notify you every single time I post. And go ahead and give this podcast a rating on Spotify. That basically just pushes it out to everybody and gives it a little bit more exposure. Go ahead and follow me on my other socials. I have a TikTok and I have an Instagram. Everything is linked in the show notes. And as always, I hope you liked this episode. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. It was kind of therapeutic sitting here talking and remembering little baby Ashlyn and how proud little baby Ashlyn would be to be sitting here as a full-blown paramedic telling you guys advice about your very first shift. So, as always, and especially for your first time, have a good shift. I'll see you in the next episode.